Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be covering the topic of polling, because if there's one thing that I've recognized over the many years that I've been paying attention to politics and polling is these people have shown time and time again that they are out of touch and completely wrong in terms of their polling or the pretense or predictions that they pretend they can make in regards to these polls, these sampling that they take from the populace. You know that area where they're constantly using these poll numbers as a means to convince you or influence your decisions in regards to elections in this country? I mean, how many times have we seen where these pollsters have put out all these polls, especially in the lead up to elections? This is the big one. This is the big one, folks. It's all about elections, right? Ooh, it's the pollsters that are out there, you know, trying to get the pulse of the nation, the pulse of the people, and see where they're leaning politically. And they go out and they do all this sampling, and then they come back with these numbers, right, that suggests or basically tries to tell people how you're supposed to think or how you're supposed to vote. Because in reality, that's what they're trying to tell you when they put forth these polling numbers. That's subtle suggestions. That's used as a psychological weapon as a means to convince you of what's popular or where you should align with politically. But as we've seen, whether it's Brexit, Trump down the U.S., or all of the elections that we've had in recent times in Canada, these pollsters are out of touch with reality and not even showing anything that remotely resembles being on point or accurate in terms of the predictions. And of course, this Eric Grenier, I'm going to be referencing a CBC article. Of course, Eric Grenier, he's one of the pollsters in Canada that, establishment media organizations such as the CBC that uses forced wealth and income redistribution as a means to an end, right? Socialism, or blatant outright theft on behalf of the government to pay and subsidize this crown crony corporation in Canada. Yeah, of course, they're more than willing to keep Eric Grenier on the payroll and feeding him more money from the taxpayers in Canada for what? That's another thing. Why would you? I mean, in any other area of business or the economy, no one that's as wrong as often as Eric Grenier and his polling institution, nobody, if you were as wrong as many times as this guy is, yeah, who's going to hire them? Who would hire these people? Well, CBC. And why is that? Because, they don't have a profit margin or a profit motive. They use taxpayers to pay and fund for everything they do. So they don't care whether it fails or whether it succeeds. It doesn't matter. Hey, at least they're still propagating, at least Eric's still propagating their political messaging. So they're more than willing to use your taxpayer dollars, your hard-earned money, the fruits of your labor, to subsidize and pay for this inept person and the institution in which he's a part of or owns. Anyways, let's listen to what Eric's got to say in regards to why his polling sampling and his polls are constantly proven to be out of touch and not aligned with reality whatsoever. Let's hear the excuses he's got to offer. Headline, CBC News Politics. Here's what pollsters missed on Quebec's vote and what those lapses mean for the 2019 federal election. Pollsters consider how to analyze problems of turnout and volatility ahead of next year's federal vote. So they're working hard. Like I say, this is contributed by Eric Grenier. But they're out there working hard to figure out how they can better manipulate the minds of the masses to achieve a much better rate of success for the next federal election. So they'll be able to give you a much better idea of how you're truly supposed to think, and hopefully the outcome will prove their predictions right. That's what they're trying to do, folks. They're trying to figure out how can we truly convince the people that actually we have some credibility, when in reality it's been shown time and time again that we really don't have any. Well, I'll give you a hint right here now, Eric. It's all about sampling, man. And I'm pretty sure you know this. And I'm pretty sure you actually try to avoid that very fact, that very reality. Because that's the easiest answer to your question that would clear the air and clear the fog that surrounds these polling institutions. But do they want to admit that they actually do the improper methodology and improper sampling? Or completely forget about the fact that there's a huge, substantial portion of the population in Canada and all other countries that don't want to play your little polling game, or might just lie to you when you call them up, because they don't care about your kind of polling institution and they know that you use it for political purposes. That's the reality. That's the truth about why these polling institutions and these polls are constantly being proven to be wrong. And that's my thoughts so far on the subject. Let's hear what Eric's got to say. Quebec's historic election presented a challenge to pollsters. It wasn't until after the results showed that the polls had largely fallen short that the extent of that challenge became clear, explaining in part why the polls missed the mark and providing some lessons that pollsters will take into the 2019 federal elections. Like I said, they just want to create a little better semblance of relevancy here because they recognize that people don't trust them anymore. And why would people? They're like, we literally only look to you for one reason and one reason only, and that's to give us a general idea as to where people are in regards to their stance in terms of politics. But yet, you continually show us that whatever you're doing, it's not working. Going into Election Day, the Coalition Avenir Quebec looked to be in a decent position to form a majority government. It had a decisive lead among Francophones and had pulled a few points away from the Liberals. But it was still a close race. The CBC's Quebec poll tracker, an aggregation of all publicly available polls, put the CAQ at just under 33% and the Liberals at just over 29%. The widest gap between the CAQ and the Liberals in any poll was 5 points, but most headed at 2 or 3 points. When all the votes were counted, however, the CAQ received just over 37% of ballots cast. The Liberals took a little under 25%. That represented an error of some 9 points between the two leading parties compared to the margin the poll suggested separated them. That is a large error, the biggest in any provincial or federal election in Canada since 2013 in BC. That was 5 years and 14 elections ago when the New Democrats averaged a lead of about 7 points in the polls before losing to the Liberals by a margin of 4 points. Results from Quebec left a few pollsters scratching their heads and raised questions regarding the reliability of polls, particularly with the federal election only a year away. Pollsters will have little time and few opportunities to tweak and test their methodologies, but already the reasons for the miss in Quebec are coming into focus. Anyways, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below, and you can read it. You know, you can take in all the excuses they're going to offer as to why they are completely wrong once again. But I'm going to help you out here right now. You can listen to what they have to say, but I'm going to tell you what I got to say. And the truth of the matter is, folks, that these pollsters, they try to manipulate the masses, the minds of the masses, by using particular forms of sampling. So whether it's landlines or cell phone lines, they know exactly who they're reaching out to in terms of what their stances are. These aren't just random samples of people. I mean, have you ever been asked to participate in these polls? Chances are you probably haven't. I know I haven't ever in my entire adult life. Ever. So obviously, and I would never agree with most of the answers that people put forth and present in these polls. So I am just one of many, many Canadians that are never ever represented in any of these polls. And why is that? Because they continue to ask people that have a tendency to want to answer political polls, right? So these are people, like I say, these are not anyone that's representative of the general public. That's why they continually get things wrong in these polls, because that's not an actual representation of the mood, thoughts, or political stance of the general population. It's the thoughts and opinions of a small amount of people that like to take surveys and answer polls. And think about those kind of people and the kind of mentality and the kind of psychology and what they would represent. Yeah, like I said, once again, people that are not a representation of the general public. That's where your problem is, Eric. And we already know that there's already in Canada, what, 35 to 40% of the population that don't even vote ever. So that's already, you know, think about it. in the last however many elections we've had, 3, 4, 5, Harper or Trudeau, Chrétien, they've all won their majority government with the support of less than 40% of the voting population or the voting public. So that non-voting population is just as large and substantial a number as those who give any of these parties a majority victory in terms of government. Leaving that 40% of people out of the equation, or even those of us that actually may have voted once or twice in life, or may have gotten active or participated in the process in the past, but will never answer or are never asked to answer any of these questions, once again, take that 40% and add in however much of a percentage we represent. I would say we actually represent the majority of any population and definitely the majority of people in Canada. So you're leaving the majority of the people's voices out of the equation in terms of these polling numbers or these polls that you constantly present and try to ram down the people's throat. That's why they're continually shown and proven to be wrong and out of touch with reality or a reflection of the Canadian population or the Canadian people. That's why. You can try to analyze your numbers, but the simple answer to the question is your sampling is far from being even remotely resembling or representative of the opinions or the minds of the masses. That's just reality. That's just factual. That's just true. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.